and welcome back to the Common Connected podcast. I'm your host, Janine Halloran, and on today's episode, I get to talk with my new colleague, Sonali Vongchusiri. She is a highly sensitive mom with 3 deeply feeling and strong-willed kids. She's your sensitivity, needs, and regulation go-to gal. Her work is dedicated to sharing with parents how it's possible to have fun with sensitive kids and raise them to be kind and compassionate. Because she gets it, both the kid and from having those kids. So we talk a lot today all about math and parenting. So she uses these really neat equations to help us try and balance both what our needs are and what our children's needs are, and understanding and empathy and emotions and rationality. So many different things that we have talked about in terms of balancing and making sure that the equation is balanced so that both our needs get met and our child's needs get met. So I hope that you enjoy our conversation. Sonali, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Janine. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, for people who don't know you, if you could just take a few minutes and share a little bit about your story and about the math meets parenting thoughts that you have talked about in other places in your community.
So, I consider myself a sensitivity needs and regulation parent coach. And my work is based in my own experience because growing up, well, I say I was that kid and I have 3 of those kids, meaning we're all sensitive and it showed up in different ways. And when I started my journey, the I tried all the parenting approaches that the experts recommended and they just did not work in my home the way the
Mhm.
experts said that they would. So I tried being more playful and it worked for a week. And I would try, the one-on-one time, but it would overwhelm me to try to do that with 3 kids. Or I would try listening to emotions and I would listen and listen and listen and I would end up defeated. And
Yeah.
it left me in this place where I was like, "Oh my goodness." I felt like I finally realized that I was on this roller coaster with my kids where what I was doing is I was putting their needs above mine. I was like, "What do they need? Oh, they need me to be playful. Oh, they need me to be considerate, compassionate. Okay, I can do that." And then I would reach a tipping point where I would snap. And I'd be
Yes.
like, "That's it. My needs above yours." And then the moment I would do that, of course, I would feel guilty and I'd feel bad. And I would go back to, "Oh, let me put their needs above mine." And that led me to being on this emotional roller coaster with my kids. And then I finally realized, wait a minute, instead of me focusing on their needs or my needs, what actually stabilized my relationship was bringing their needs and my needs together alongside each other. And that created stability in my relationship with them. It allowed me to enjoy my relationship with them, and it allowed me to enjoy my relationship with myself. And what it also did is it gave me permission to get curious about what my needs were. Because part of what I explained, or part of my story is that I am legally blind and I have albinism. So uh, I like to say it in this way: I'm a person of color with no color. I'm an Indian woman living in white skin. So I am, in so many ways, a contradiction. And when people look at me or hear my accent, they don't realize my ethnicity, my background is hidden. And so growing up, and so it was a confusing space for me to be in, and my set of needs is very different from the people around me. And so I didn't know what those needs were. What I tried to do is hide those needs. So part of my story is that I actually didn't realize that I had albinism. And you may
Mm.
have heard the term albino, but I say person with albinism. I didn't realize until I was 11 years old and in 6th grade. And it was a moment where a teacher told me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And you would think that that would be the moment I was like, "Okay, let me come to terms with this thing." And it was not, Janine. It was the moment where I was like, "Okay, Faria 93, light medium blonde. That is the way I'm going to go for my hair. If I can't look like I'm Indian, maybe I can look like I'm Western." And I did that for a while. And so it was this complete denial of who I was to try
Mhm.
to be somebody else. And I was very good with math. I'm a very analytical person. So I studied for my undergraduate degree in math and my master's. And I worked as an actuary for several years. And then I had kids.
Yeah.
And then my world shifted because I could no longer pretend I didn't have the needs that I have. And that was where I came to this moment where one of the stories that I like to tell is I was holding one of my toddlers in the park, one of my boys when they were a toddler, and they pointed up and they're like, "Look, a bird!" And outside voice me says, "Yes, that's a bird." And inside voice me says, "Sonali, that is misinformation right there. You have no idea if that is a bird or a plane or a squirrel." And I was like, "Wait, what am I doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm trying to connect. That makes sense. But my way to connection is going to look different from, like, I was doing what the parenting books would say, acknowledge, yes, that's a bird. But that didn't work for me because that wasn't my truth. So now what I would say is like, oh, you see a bird. I don't see it. Describe it to me. And I share with you a story where now how I handle those moments is my son, we were visiting my mom a few years ago, he saw a wasp one day, and the next day I was sitting outside. He was really afraid of this wasp. So he pokes his head out the screen door and he says, "Mom, do you see a wasp?" And I say, "Kiddo, I don't see a wasp, but also I don't see." So take your own risk there. And that was where I realized, wait, one of the things that I realized is that we all have the same core needs, just some of us, and those core needs are to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, but they're also to be appreciated, to be approved of, to be acknowledged, to know that we belong, to know that we are valued and validated. And when we have that sense, to know that we are important, that we have impact, and that we matter. And when those needs are met, we all feel seen, known, and felt. And that leads to a sense of empowerment. So we all have those same core needs, just some of us have non-traditional ways of getting those needs met. And so it was this journey of holding that, like, both my needs and my kids' needs. And this is where, as I started to look at these things, I'm like, wait a minute, I can't do what the books are telling me to do because this need. I was like, if I take them out and try to run around all day so that they get their energy out, I end up sunburnt. So that's
Right.
not going to work for me. Or if I try to read that, like, I couldn't read them the stories in the same way everybody could read them the stories. I had to find my own way. And so I realized, oh, I needed to bring their needs alongside my needs. And then because I geek out on math, I started to put together, I was like, wait, this is an equation. Connection equals my needs plus your needs, meaning your needs matter and my needs matter, which that is connection, is both of us matter in a relationship. And then at the beginning, of my journey, I didn't have boundaries. I didn't know who I was. So I was like, wait, the other piece, I tried to give more and more and more empathy. And a lot of the
Yeah.
people that I work with are like, yes, I try to do that. I think if I'm more empathic, things will naturally change. And I realized that another connection equation, and then when we try to balance these equations, is that connection equals empathy plus boundaries. We need both in a stable way, and that's what leads to genuine, true connection.
And you know what I love about this is that it's so wonderful that you're being so vulnerable about your story and to be able to say like I recognize that I looked different, but I didn't actually do like wasn't able to really go deep and process that, right? And there's
Yeah.
nothing like parenthood to reflect back to you what you haven't worked on. And I mean, there is nothing like it to be like when you have children and you are now then trying to raise them as people in the world, and then you start to realize, oh, I still need to work on this myself. I still need to get better at this. And it causes you to really reflect. Like it happened with me, it happens with most families that I know that having children make shifts your entire world, your entire perspective, and it helps you to start to do that reflection. And I think to honor the fact that you are highly sensitive and your other needs that you have, as well as taking into account what your children need, that is a really hard thing for parents to do, to be able to acknowledge my needs matter because your needs do matter.
Yeah.
It's really so it's a thing that I actually really want to emphasize whenever I work with families. I was actually just talking with a mom yesterday. I was like, what are you doing? Summer is really hard. Summer is really, really hard for parents of younger kids, especially if they have really big feelings. What are your needs in this moment, and how are you getting your needs met? Her needs are being met. We can do that. I am here. What are you going to do? What are the things that are going to refill you, recharge you, help you? And I love that you put this in an equation. Like it is not only your needs are just as important as your child's needs. And I love, 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 love that. Like they need to be, it needs to be a balance. It needs to be a balance in order for you to be able to actually walk through and parent.
Right. Right. And also that like what I noticed is that the ping pong just didn't work for me. Like if
Yep.
I tried to focus on their needs and then I focused on mine, that's what didn't work. So I was like, oh, how do I blend these things together? How can
Yes,
I meet both their needs and my needs at the same time? And
exact.
that was the piece that I was that like, and how could I work through this part of like getting to know myself and discovering my needs? Because no parent, like you said, it's like a giant funhouse mirror when you
Yes.
step into parenting. All of a sudden you're like, oh, there's all my stuff
Mhm. Yes.
right there. And so like, how can I be honest with myself with what's there while also parenting, because I can't pretend like it's not there. And so that was where this whole blending came together, was how could I both acknowledge them and acknowledge me at the same time in a way that was stabilizing. So could I write down that connection equation, that first one,
Yes.
um, and kind of share how I use a Venn diagram because I love math and put these together. So the first one is connection equals your child's needs plus your needs. And could I share an example to see how that what this looks like and
That
then
would
how
be
you can work with
lovely.
it?
Yes, I would love for you to share that.
Okay, so now I'll do a Venn diagram, and this is going to be the most beautiful circles you've ever seen. So here we go. I'm teasing, they're really lopsided.
Circles are the hardest thing to
Uh,
draw. They're
so
so hard.
aren't they are, right?
Like a perfect circle.
So
It's they train for that in art school. It's hard to do.
yeah, that's not me. So these are my beautiful lopsided circles.
Of
And
course.
so let me think of an example that would be good here. Okay, so oftentimes with sensitive kids, there will
Mm,
be a situation where a child is melting down and they are screaming and screaming and screaming. And the parent is like, I have tried that strategy of just sitting with them, but they can scream for hours.
mm.
Okay. And so what I'll do is I'll work with the parent and the child needs. So let's look at what's going on for the child and the parent. So the parent is saying, I want to sit with them. So sit with them. But also, if this is a sensitive parent, which oftentimes there's a sensitivity there for the parent as well, like the sound will eventually dysregulate them, right? And they're like, I'm trying to say words, but no words are getting through. That's something that I say to parents, is like nonverbal is the first one to go. So if I try to sit with them, what is the reason? So on top of the line, what I put is the behavior, the action
Mm.
that we're trying to take. Below the line is where I put the need.
Okay.
Okay. So you're sitting with them. What is the need there? You want them to know that you're there, they're not alone, that they're received, that they matter, right? And you want to connect with them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And yet trying to talk to them in that moment isn't working, and just sitting isn't working either, because then the meltdown goes on for hours. Your child is screaming. What is the need? They want to be heard. They want to be known. They want to be understood in that moment, right? They need some type of acknowledgement of where they are. And yet they aren't, because they're so dysregulated, they aren't actually able to hear your words coming in. So
Yeah.
that's why the advice is okay, just stay silent, right? because they're like, okay, nothing's going to get in anyway. Well, what I found is if we combine these energetic needs together, there is a way that we can let them know that they matter, that they're important. We can connect with them while communicating that they're heard. And what I found is actually, so now I've put those energies together here in the Venn diagram. Now coming up, okay, how do we do that? What I found, and this started with my own family and my own home, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave him. He's melting down. My ears are ringing. I want to be with him, but it's really hard. And at the same time, nothing I'm doing seems to be getting through to him that I'm here with him anyway, right?
Mm.
So what do we do in those moments to let them know that they're heard without using words? Because if our bodies aren't able to do that, I found if you just draw a picture for them, this is going to be really good artwork again.
Always.
Oh, it
Always.
is. That you expect nothing less. So if you, and I will draw some tears. There we go. It's a big old puddle of tears. And I wrote, Mom loves Sarah. And so
Oh.
now you can slide this to them. They can see that they matter. You're offering connection. They know that they're heard, but without you even speaking a word. And so now both your need is met because you want them to know that you're there. That's often why we're communicating with them when we're trying to talk. We're like, I'm here, and we're letting them know things because you want them to know that we're there. So we're letting them know visually that we're there. That's an
Mm.
important need for us as their parent. We're also meeting their need. They need silence in that moment. And
Yeah.
so we're honoring both of those. So that's um, one way that we can offer that connection.
I love that you used the visuals and to be able to acknowledge like this is very overwhelming. For a highly sensitive person to have a child screaming, it is very overwhelming and it can
Mhm.
shut you down. And then you are not able to be that thermostat in the moment. So I love that this is a way that you can actually connect and but also helping your needs and their needs at the same time and not overwhelming you, not overwhelming the child. And I think that's really a neat idea and a neat concept to try and help you everybody in this situation, really trying to get everybody's needs met and to make sure everybody feels seen, known, and heard. They just want to be acknowledged, and you acknowledge it. It's really hard
Right.
to deal with high sensitivity, and like if you are highly sensitive as a parent and your child is highly sensitive.
And that's what I love to do is when it, because all of a sudden it's because then you can't dismiss your needs for your
Yes.
child in that moment as much as you want to, as much as somebody say you process that later, you're like, okay, but then I end up yelling or I
Yeah.
end up just needing to go and then I feel awful. So what
Yeah.
else can I do? And so this is a way that you can work with both at the same time. Another one of my favorites is well, one of my connection equations is connection equals empathy plus boundaries. It's this your needs plus your kids' needs. And um, Janine, do you know the one more hug kid at bedtime?
Yes.
That whole story? Yeah. Okay. So there's one more hug. Mom, one more hug. Well, 174 hugs later and 2.5 hours later, you're still hugging, right? Like you're still going back and doing one more hug. And it's one where I found like, I'm like, oh, there are two needs present. So if we do the Venn diagram, one more hug, what is the child seeking? Well, at bedtime, when they're going to bed, they feel like the needier one. So they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to know some, like, I need to feel like I want to feel you. They're seeking a felt sense of connection before they go to sleep. And then we're holding that space and we kind of change where we stand. Like at first, the first hug, we're like, oh, I can't wait to hug you. This is a great idea. By
Mhm.
like the 14th, we're like, please go to bed. Well, what is the need there? The please go to bed, the behavior, the words that we're saying underneath is a need for rest, both for our kids and for us. So if we bring those two together, how can we rest and have the felt sense of connection with this connection equation? We can say, oh my goodness, I found if you load it at the front, hey, when I go to the door, will you do that thing? It's my favorite part of the night where you say, Mom, can I have one more hug? Will you do it please tonight? So now you're sending them the message that you need that one more hug. Then when they ask for it, you do, oh, I can't wait to wrap my two arms around you. And so I'm working with the senses and
Mm.
they feel it, they feel felt. And then they don't need to ask for more hugs because they felt you. They felt like, oh, you needed that hug from me. You needed me to ask for it. And so their need got met and your need for rest got met.
I love that. And there's always one more hug, one more sip of water, one more book. Like there's
Right? Yes.
yes. Oh, that and it's a challenge. And I love that doing things at the beginning to sort of help set the tone, set the expectation to make it go smoother and to make sure everybody can get what they need, right? It's amazing. I love that. Are there any other equations that you have found to be like super helpful that you'd like to share?
One of my favorites is, well, I'll share a couple.
Hmm,
Connection equals our emotions, or our emotional self plus our rational self. Um,
lovely. Tell me more.
um, so that is both acknowledging, like, let's say, where you can ground. Let me think of an example for that one. Oh, here's an example. So if we told our kids, oh, it's okay to be sad, we're working with the emotional. But if we say something like, here's how you can merge the whole equation together, of course you're sad. I just rationalized and I said that it made so much sense that they're sad with just the two words, of course. It's
Hmm.
bringing the need for approval to the sadness. So now they feel like, oh, it makes sense. Does that,
Yes,
make sense?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Another one is connection equals intention plus action.
Mm,
So a lot of times, and this one works, this one has been hugely supportive for parents that I work with when they see, we've talked a lot in my community and with parents I work with one-on-one about being on the drama triangle,
mm,
because sometimes there are these different situations are like, oh, I just want to fix it for my kid. I just want to make it better. Or, oh, they didn't mean to do that, right? And so I'm going to draw out the drama triangle and then show you how this intention plus action formula works.
that sounds great.
And okay, so again, this is going to be an incredible triangle, just
Listen,
so beautiful.
I love my stick figures rock and and I always tell I draw a lot when I'm in therapy with kids, but I'm terrible at it. It's absolutely horrifying. And I'm like these are my stick figures and I am here for you. I'm listening to you and this is my poorly drawn example of what we're doing.
Yes. Okay, so this is my drama triangle, and I've got the victim on the bottom, persecutor and rescuer, and you kind of dance around this triangle.
Mm,
And what this is a way that we engage in relationships, but it kind of keeps us stuck in this cycle and it doesn't feel good. So it might be something like, why didn't you put your dishes away? And then somebody else says, oh, they didn't mean to. That's the rescuer. So why didn't they put the dishes away? Is a persecutor. Rescuer, oh, they didn't mean to. And oh, they always tell me what I'm doing wrong.
mm.
That might be the victim, right? Okay. So here's what I found with the connection equals intention plus action equation is I found that this can be really supportive. If we see what's going on, it can help us step off of the drama triangle. So what
Hmm.
I've noticed is that the rescuer role, and I shorthanded these because I'm a terrible speller.
Also fine.
I'm just gonna acknowledge that. What the rescuer does in the connection equation is they focus on intention and they dismiss action. Oh, they didn't mean to. They just forgot. Does that make
Yes,
sense? Okay.
absolutely.
The persecutor, they did it on purpose. She intentionally didn't take her dish to the sink. I've told her 57 million times. So, action. The victim is nobody understands me and nobody wants to. So they dismiss both intention, and action.
Yeah.
So what I found is the way off of the drama triangle. Well, two things. One is choice, but the second is just balance the equation. So let's say for like I love the rescuer position. I think I used to hang out there a lot. And so I'd be like, oh, well, you didn't mean to, so it's okay. And now what I can say is, we'll hold, I will change a color.
I love color coding.
I love color coding as well. So I'm adding an action. Oh, you didn't mean to spill the milk, and it did spill. Let's go get a rag. So you didn't mean to, and it happened. No big deal. Let's go get a rag. So we
Yep.
clean it up. You acknowledge and we move on. Um, that's another example. Oh, you didn't mean to grab the toy from your brother before you asked, and it happened, right? It did happen. So we're acknowledging it. Let's figure out how to make, like, how, let's go figure out together how to make it right. So you're acknowledging what happened. The persecutor um, dismisses the intention.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm trying to think of a good example. He took my ball. Okay.
Gosh.
He took it. He meant to. He took my ball. Right. Okay. That's your ball. Or that's your ball. He's holding it. And I know how much he respects you as his brother. Or I know how much he cares about you as his big brother. Let's go figure out what happened. So I brought back in the intention.
Yep.
Nobody wants to play with me, right? And so let's look at victim. So here we're going to add in intention plus action. Okay. Nobody wants to play with me. And then I sit alone, right? Or like, and it's never going to change.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're dismissing, nobody wants to play with me. And so what I would do is I'd bring in their intention. You want to play with somebody and you're not sure how. So I
Yep.
acknowledge tension and action. And so that, like, that allows a softening of acknowledging, because they're also dismissing that they have the ability to do something here. Did that
Yes.
example make sense? I feel like I could have done a clearer example there.
No, I love it though because it's real. Like how many times have I heard he took my ball? Like that happens all the time. Or nobody's playing with me. That why will nobody play with me? That is huge, especially in elementary school. I hear it all the time from kids, especially when I was working in schools and they'd be like on the side of the playground. Why will nobody play with me? There's actually a great book by my friend Caroline all about why will no one play with me? Because it is such a common question that she gets in her work, I get in mine. So I think it's actually a brilliant example. And I love the way that you are so intentional in the bringing the balance in, that it's both and, not either or. It has to be both pieces, and that's how you can soften it. That's how it can make things better if you think about both things and how can you be intentional about balancing both of these things at the same time. And it's tricky. I'm not saying it's easy. It's like it's simple. It sounds simple, but it's not easy, as I often say to my kids, to do these sorts of things. This is so cool. If people want to learn more about your work or work with you, where should they go?
They can go to forwardtogetherparenting.com, and there they can sign up for my email list. I send out a weekly newsletter.
Hmm.
Um, and so I share different ideas like this. And I really appreciate you creating the space for me to share this today. So thank you, Janine.
Well, you're welcome. And I remember when we first connected a little bit ago, I just was like enamored of these equations because it was such a neat way of thinking about it that I had not heard before. And so I wanted to make sure that other people heard about it. And so I wanted to share it on my podcast. And so the last thing I always like to ask all of my guests is what are your coping skills? How do you rest and relax?
Those are great questions. Okay. So coping skills. I like to find really like things that are supportive and satisfying. and
Mm.
that can process emotion in just a couple seconds, because oftentimes that's just what I've got is a couple
Yes.
seconds. And so I love doing that with my community as well. And so I've done this one. This is one of my favorite ones. So if you go back to this drawing for nonverbal, right?
Mm.
Um, Sometimes what can be really supportive is if you're feeling really stuck. If when I'm feeling really, really stuck and I know something needs to move, and yet I feel like, oh, if I open up that thing, it's going to be hours and hours. I don't want to go there, right? Or I don't have the capacity to go there. What I found is something as simple. And if you would join me in doing this, Janine,
Yeah.
uh, so as simple as taking a piece of paper, and you can use scrap paper, and just ripping it.
Oh.
And you can make a little sound. You can be like, "Oh," if you want to, but whatever is stuck, it just lets me feel a little bit more alive and present to whatever's there.
Oh, I love this. I
And
love it. Actually, it's so funny that you are doing that because I actually was just talking with a client of mine. They were very angry and were having a hard time like expressing the words that they wanted to say. And so we actually ended up like I had her write down a few and I was like, just rip it. Rip it. You don't want anybody to see it. Rip it and get it out. Get that anger out in a way that makes you feel better. I listen, as long as it's not like what I always say to kids is as long as it's not like state testing or something that's really important, like you can rip
right.
stuff. Like it's okay to rip a piece of paper. I'd much
Yeah.
rather you have a rip a piece of paper than like hurt somebody else. Rip that paper.
Right. Like this is healthy expression right here,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I was aware of what piece of paper I was ripping up. And so then going back to that example where if you drew this picture for a kid, if they rip it up, that's not you failing. They just expressed in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Draw them another picture and be like, do it again.
I'm still mad, clearly. And I
Right.
thank you for sharing with me. I now know. That's awesome. So you do stuff like I love the quickness of it because you don't, as a parent, have a ton of time. So that's a coping skill for you.
That
Awesome.
is, yes, old journals, whatever else, receipts when you're clearing out your wallet, just add a little emotion to it when you rip it.
I love it. I think that's so cool.
And then the ways that I rest and relax, I was thinking about this and I'm like, okay, so the whole concept of my work is hold two things, right? Put an and between them. And so one of them is being by water. I just love like whether it's a shower or a waterfall or an ocean. I love being near the water. Um, and then the other one is like humor that acknowledges where you truly are. And that
Mm.
has been one of the most healing things. So like the joke about the wasps, or a couple weeks ago, my oldest said to me, he was like, "Oh, mom, your high score for being asked why you're so white this week is 3." And I was like, "Oh, that was funny." And you noticed and you made a joke about it, and that was funny. And so, like, those types of things, like, I like to laugh. Or if I have a kid that isn't eating vegetables, like, I'll use my hands and be like, "She's not going to eat the vegetables." "Yes, she is. Don't talk like that." And what it does is it acknowledges that part of me that doubts, while also acknowledges that part of me that wants to believe. And doing those types of things, allowing me to be me and like honest with where I am, has been one of the most liberating and grounding things. So those are the pieces that I wanted to share.
Oh, I love that. There's a playfulness to it, but also an acknowledgement and understanding of really fundamentally who you are and what you can and can't do and what you are and aren't, right? Like it just acknowledges this is who I am. This is how I show up in the world. And I'm not afraid of it and I'm not ashamed of it. This is me. And I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Janine.
Welcome. Oh, it's been so much fun talking to you. And I am so glad that we were able to connect. And I want to make sure that people go to say the website again so people know.
Forwardtogetherparenting.com.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you to everybody who's listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. And as always, take a few minutes, have a little fun, and have an awesome day.